Hello and welcome to Full Disclosure, a podcast project that allows me to spend much more time than I'd ever got on the radio with interesting people. Jan Ravens, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm researching this like a proper professional.
Well done.
Thank you. I was struck by the Venn diagrams. No one's ever sort of done comedy family trees, have they? Like they did rock family trees. But quite a few people who've sat in that chair relatively recently, like sort of Culshaw and Alistair McGowan, but also Hugh Laurie. Loads and loads, possibly more connections than almost anybody else that's ever come on Full Disclosure, which is not by any stretch of the imagination the most interesting thing about you. We will find out what is in the course of the next hour. We begin on the Wirral in
Hoylake.
In Hoylake, which is also where Glenda Jackson came from.
Well, that's who I wanted to be when I was growing up, and a lot of the guys around that I was hanging out with, they used to call me Glenda because I wanted to act, and I thought, and Glenda Jackson was like in her absolute heyday when I was a teenage. She was doing Elizabeth R, on the television. She was doing Touch of Class in Hollywood.
God, yeah.
She was doing the RSC, doing Peter Brook's productions at the RSC, and so I wanted to be like proper actress like Glenda.
Already discovering some of the talents that would sort of set you on your adult course, but I was struck by the contrast between that kind of fun and comedy and what was most of the time a far from funny home life. I mean, it was tough. Your dad was
my dad suffered from my dad was hospitalised quite a few times. He tried to end his own life a number of times, and he was hospitalised, and he was, I later learned, I knew nothing about it as a kid, of course, but he was diagnosed as schizophrenic. And it's quite interesting sort of looking back on that now. Interesting and sad, but interesting because I think a lot of people were diagnosed schizophrenic who in fact were probably bipolar. But I don't really know, what he was, but I know that...
Just knew he wasn't happy.
Yeah, and he was on is it Librium or Lithium? He was on drugs his whole life, and he was a lovely guy. He was kind of a bit Eric Morecambe, kind of dry Scouse sense of humour. All right, Jan, but a bit sort of very much sort of don't put your head above the parapet. He was a kind, sort of gentle sort. He was quite sort of baffled by life, really.
Yes, he was a government clerk when he did work.
He was a clerk. It sounds like Bob Cratchit, doesn't it?
Yes, it does a bit.
You don't expect your
played
dad...
by Tom Courtenay, probably.
Yeah, and also it's kind of the sort of thing that you expect a young person to be somehow, a clerk.
Yeah.
Because he did do... he was like, as people were then, like he was put in to be an accountant. My mum was put in to be a secretary. And but he couldn't hack the exams, and both my mum and dad, their mother died when they were about 13, 14, and then their dads married women who were not like the wicked stepmother, but were not as warm and kind of edged them out, kind of thing. And I think my dad ran away to join the Navy when he was a year younger than he should have been, kind of thing.
It drew them together, maybe, that sort of shared
experience. Maybe, yeah.
Your mum became a nurse later after being a secretary.
Yeah.
So what was home like? Not to dwell unduly on the bad bits.
Yeah.
When did you discover your ability to entertain your mum or your dad or both of them at the same?
I don't know. It's interesting that, what came first, the kind of thinking of like, I better try and give everyone a laugh. Or, was I just like that? Both my mum and dad had a great sense of humour, and my mum, my mum had all these fantastic sort of Lancastrian expressions, like, if she thought somebody was a bit sort of overly proficient or enthusiastic in the bed department, she'd say, "Oh, I bet she's a bundle of joy in a bunk." And if somebody had a bit of a grumpy expression, she'd say, "She had a face like a fried shoe."
That's a lovely facility with words.
It's
beautiful.
Just like, I don't know whether they were hers or whether that she'd picked them up from somewhere. But
also,
anyway,
it's the way you tell them as well.
Well, yeah.
They got to land.
Yeah. Well, I always sort of say that, my mum was the first impression I did, but she also sort of morphed into Patricia Routledge after a while, because because we're both from the same neck of the woods. You know, Patricia Rattler was born in Tranmere, and that sort of, when my mum was like, went for coffee with her friend, she said, well, I went for a coffee in Morrison's, you know, with Ted and Jean Jelly, Fred and Barbara Bickerstaff, and Bill and Bunty Burtonshaw. You know, it sort of sounds like an Alan Bennett play.
And you pick up on what, rhythms, or you know that these things just make people smile, because that shit's not funny. You read that written down, and it's not charming at all. It's just a diary, but something in the delivery, the combination of the words, the accent, the voice, the tone, and some sort of magic happens.
Well, I think part of the magic of that, it's quite Alan Bennett-y, isn't it? It's quite Victoria Woody, and I think it's that sort of. I think there is something in those northern rhythms and those northern characters that I mean, I had the very, very great privilege of doing a couple of the Alan Bennet Talking Heads monologues just before lockdown. In fact, they were shut down by lockdown.
It was in Watford.
Yeah. Gosh, you have done your research.
That's the only reason I said that.
And oh my God, I just felt like I'd come home. You know, it was like, this is just like this is like my area of expertise. I've totally got this. And it was so lovely to do, because there's not only the rhythm of his jokes and the rhythm of the of the language, but also the sort of pathos of it, and the underscored sort of loneliness and insecurities and doubts of those characters. It was just wonderful. But so we did have a lot of laughs in my house. It wasn't like it was all bad, but there were a lot of rows which I sort of knew weren't like rows in other people's houses, you know, where my dad would end up crying and my mum would threaten to leave. And, you know, there was a lot of, I mean, I guess it felt quite sort of perilous. And I always had a sort of feeling of, what did I used to call it? Anyway, it was a sort of something I didn't know what it was, but a sort of a nameless dread. That's what I called it.
Wow.
Like a nameless dread of what's going to happen, you know, what's wrong. Something's wrong.
So you didn't feel safe?
No, not really. No, I didn't. I was quite a nervous kid. And, you know, I was very much a sort of, you know, a bit of a victim, actually, as a lot of people were, of that sort of thing, of there being like a sort of, you know, this is like in primary school, like a girl that would say, we're not friends with you today, you know, in that sort of Margaret Atwood Cat's Eye way, where there'd be, you know, the gang and the sort of psychological bullying.
And that would hit you much harder. I often wonder whether the kids that did that remember. They probably don't. It's just that some people are tuned differently.
Yeah.
And so your sensitivity, given the lack of security at home, is going to make you much rawer to those moments. Yeah,
maybe.
If you met her now, she probably wouldn't even recognise the person.
I think she runs a cleaning agency now.
Not that you've checked.
Because I am in touch with a couple of my friends from school, and she's in touch with this bossy girl.
But it hits, doesn't it?
It does hit, yeah, it really does. And it wasn't really till I went to grammar school that I started, like I did impressions of the teachers and all that, you know, palaver.
When did you first realise that ability that people who haven't got it find absolutely extraordinary, but people who have got it have never really not had it, so they don't find it anywhere near as extraordinary as everybody else does? But was it just your mum? Your dad would say you sound just like your mum, or do you have siblings, Jan?
I've got a brother. Yeah, my brother is a couple of years younger than me,
right.
And he's in the building trade.
Okay.
And
when did you first realise you could do this?
I suppose it was the teachers, really. I mean, I kind of, I think it was probably the I remember doing a variety show when I joined the Guides. I joined the Guides for about 3 weeks because I thought it was all a bit military, lining up in patrols and things. But I did a variety show, and I remember doing an impression of this Horlicks advert that was on the telly, where there was this Scottish woman extolling the benefits of having a cup of Horlicks at night, and at the end she said, "And you should see what a cheery lot we are in the morning," and that was the first one I sort of remember doing. But yeah, mainly it was the teachers. And when I look back on it now, I sort of think it must have been a bit weird for those teachers, because they must have been judging from, my past record, they must have been quite good impressions.
Yeah.
So it must have been quite weird for these teachers to see this little, 13-year-old girl coming.
Nailing it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Let's back up a bit. So at primary school, you must have been good with your lessons because you got into grammar school. So, were you conscious of that? And was there pressure from home to do well at school or not?
No, not really. I think they were just sort of grateful. Neither of them had excelled at school. I think my mum was probably dyslexic.
Right.
And, she was one of those kids who was left-handed and they tried to make her right-handed and all that. And my dad was very bright, but, not able to, didn't do well in exams.
Sure.
And he, so I was clever and I liked that. I kind of liked schoolwork and I found it sort of relatively easy. Certainly at primary school. I mean, I was never any good at science, but yeah, I did like it, and I felt in myself. I felt quite competitive once I got to grammar school. I wanted to be in the top 5, and there was always one or two girls who were number 1.
And it was a foregone conclusion that you get into grammar school. You weren't one of those kids who kind of felt the very heavy weight of expectation and contrast between the secondary modern. And
I don't actually think. I mean, my brother went to the secondary modern, and now, like my son and his 4 kids have just moved back up to Liverpool, which is so great, and they've got into this. Primary school at Sefton Park, and it's great and everything. And but the oldest one, the boy, he's just been under such pressure because of the 11 plus, and then next year his little sister is going to be doing the same thing, and there's all this coaching going on. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary, and it's very odd because the grammar schools are only in these like pockets of the country, aren't they? I mean, and. Yeah, it's. The whole.
Was there class involved then? So when you went there, was it posher than your primary school? Would it have more uniform? No, not at all. It was. Plenty of kids from your primary school went up with.
Yeah, definitely. We'd had uniform at primary school. We had uniform at the grammar school. I mean, I guess. I guess there were more kind of, slightly dodgy kids at the secondary modern, and there was a bit more kind of Larry behaviour going on there, but not to sort of, And
it was all girls as well. So
it was all girls,
and the doctor's daughter would be there and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess, but not many. I can't think of many doctor's daughters. I mean, because like the Wirral always has this thing about, you're from the Wirral, that's posh.
That's certainly my understanding.
Yeah, but it's actually really not. I mean, lots of the Wirral is like, Coronation Street, in terms of the sort of little terraced houses and all that. And Hoylake itself has got those little roads and little suburban semis and little terraced houses and all that. And estates, but it's also got, the Royal Liverpool Golf Club and the big houses down on the prom and, all that.
And so Dad's reluctance to put heads above parapets didn't rub off on you necessarily. You didn't.
No, I kind of despised that about him. Yeah. I kind of, God, why don't you rebel? Why don't you? I mean, not why do you? But I kind of felt. That there ought to be a bit more kind of.
Where do you think that came from?
Maybe because I don't know. Maybe because I saw that he wasn't happy. That he felt kind of hemmed in some way, and he had been hemmed in. He'd been hemmed in by his illness, really.
Yes. So from a place of love, then, really wanting more for him.
Yeah. I mean, it was just as hard, really, if not more hard, for my mum, because in those days nobody, she couldn't tell anybody because of the shame.
Stigma.
And I can remember people saying to me, your dad's in the loony bin.
Oh, no.
And but she couldn't tell anybody, and her dad, Eric, who had worked for the Liverpool Echo, Eric had been in the Grenadier Guards, and he was like, "You're the daughter of a Grenadier Guard. You don't reveal any of this." And also when my mum married my dad, he had already tried to end his life when he was in the Navy, when he was abroad. and his family or him hadn't told her. So she married him thinking he was this very jolly, lovely, kind bloke that she'd met at Threlfall's brewery in the office. And, you know, 6 months into their marriage, he was in hospital, you know.
Another episode.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Yeah, that is tough, isn't it? For everyone, really.
And then she couldn't tell anyone as it went along. And so she was like having to work because, you know, he wasn't earning that much. She had to look after his dad who lived with us. She had to look after us and cope also with, you know, the fact that some of the time he was, you know, miserable, didn't want to do anything.
You sound quite low down on that list, you and your brother. Just in terms of size of challenge, size of responsibility.
I mean, she was on edge. She got quite cross and stuff, but I mean, she was also very loving, and he was loving in a kind of, he did what he could, you know, and he'd bring back sweets on a Friday night, you know, from the office. It's such a funny thing. He used to go to the pub on a Friday night and the Salvation Army would show up, you know, with rattling a tin and with their magazines. And he used to say, I brought you back a young soldier, which was the magazine of the children's magazine they used to give out or sell in the pub.
What would you laugh at as a family, like on telly or on the radio? Well,
my dad, not that much radio really. The radio was more kind of for music, but telly, my dad, I mean, Morecambe and Wise, you know, and Mike Yarwood, I suppose, Dick Emery. I love Dick Emery. And my dad was really keen on things like Spike Milligan. My dad was really keen on Spike Milligan and Peter Cook and Dudley Moore and the Pythons. And so... And he got me into sort of reading, you know, P.G. Wodehouse and Billy Bunter and Jennings and Derbyshire and all those sort of funny school books. And so he really, and he loved the Beatles, my dad. He loved, my mum thought it, you know, was more into Elvis, but my dad loved the Beatles. And so, you know, he'd get me down from bed if there was some sort of thing where they were all doing, you know, All You Need Is Love or whatever, you know, those famous live recordings. He'd get me down to watch.
So you were, I mean, it's still a bit of a leap, isn't it, to thinking that you could be a professional performer yourself? We haven't seen the early signs
I never really thought that I did. I mean, we had, there was one of my dad's cousins who was an actor, and he'd gone down to London with Len Rossiter and some bloke who used to play the interviewer in the Dick Emery show in those Fox Popsy bits at the beginning.
Oh, you are awful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, him. And he played bit parts in Z Cars and you know, that kind of thing. And he was very sort of like, oh, you know, I don't think Janet should go into show business. You know, the casting couch, you know, was kind of writ large in his kind of, and it was, you know, he did all he could to put me off. I don't, you know, which I found a bit sort of suspect looking back on it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, well, you've had all this fun at it. You know, why shouldn't I have a go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that, I mean, it was sort of partly Glenda that made me think, well, you know,
because
maybe
you can't be what you can't see, and you could see one of the most successful actresses coming from.
Yeah, and her dad was our builder, you know.
Really?
Yeah, Tom Jackson. Yeah, he used to, you know.
So it's feasible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half the battle, isn't it? It's with access and mobility. Feasibility is probably half of it.
Yeah.
And I think you've described it as being the first time you realised you had power in a room, which makes more sense now we know a little bit about what home life was like, was when you started doing sort of little moments at school. But never, I'd say, I mean, class jester is a phrase you've used to describe yourself, but never, I don't think, to the point of being problematic for the teachers or anything like that.
No, I mean, I was cheeky, I think. Yeah. But I remember actually when I was at primary school, some teacher saying to me, Janet Ravens, you know, don't get too big for your boots. And that was another sort of, you know, don't get your head above the parapet, you know. The thing about you, Janet Ravens, is you're too big for your boots.
Which meant that you were confident.
And cheeky, funny. Yes, and kind of... making people laugh, I suppose.
And did you develop good friendships at secondary school, at grammar school?
Yeah.
Did you become more popular, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like unpopular at primary school, but it just was. It always seemed to be in flux, you know.
Yeah.
At grammar school, I was kind of one of the cool girls. I became one of the cool girls, and you know, and also when I was, I think 12 or 13, I was quite ill for about 3 months. I had quinsies, which is like tonsillitis, only much worse. So your tonsils swell up like this, so you actually can't speak, and it's really painful.
That sounds horrible.
And you know, you have to have it about 6 times before they'll take your tonsils out. And so I was off school on and off for a whole term, and I was quite chubby in that sort of preteen, 12-year-old kind of way. And I suddenly sort of emerged, you know, from because when when I was in this chubby phase, I was probably 13. It was all the rage to be a skinhead.
Right.
So I was a skinhead girl, and I remember walking along Hoylake Prom in my Harrington jacket and my Trevera skirt and my boys' brogue shoes, and there was this boy who lived along the road, and he seemed quite sort of hard, and he was called Jamie Lancaster, and we used to call him Jamie Wankfaster, and I sort of saw him coming towards me on Hoylake Prom, and I was there with my hands in my pockets and my Harrington jacket, freezing because the Harrington jacket was like hardly anything. Anyway, and he walked towards me, and as he walked past me, he said, "Janet Ravens, you're too hard for me." And I remember after I lost all this weight and I was at the school disco, so I was probably about 14 or something, Jamie Wankfaster asking me to dance, and I sort of thought, yeah.
It got you.
Yeah.
It's a turnaround.
Got you.
It's a win.
Yeah.
But did it change the way that the girls treated you as well when you came back from that? What would we call it? A confinement?
Yeah. Not really, I don't think. I mean, we all had our, some of us had acne and some of us had, it's a problematic time, isn't it? But yeah, we went to lots of discos at the rugby club, and we had a good, I mean, I did this program a while ago called My Teenage Diary on Radio 4. Yeah. And I had these diaries, and this brilliant producer, Harriet Gilbert, she read them. And I said, well, I wasn't very, confident, and I didn't know. And she said, bloody hell, she snogged Gary on the thing. It was much more eventful than I remembered. And yeah, we had a great time. All that, and we loved dancing and planning our outfits for the weekend and all that part.
And never, I mean, however rebellious you were, even in your skinhead phase, never to the point of ceasing to care about schoolwork. I mean, you always wanted to be
I mean, it was purely a sort of, a costume sort of pose.
And did you stay in that top 5? Did you breach the...
Yeah.
The way you described it, you were never the top 1 or 2.
No.
But always the top 5.
Yeah, yes.
Did you do plays at school? What did they do?
Yeah.
Did you shine?
Well, no, not really. I mean, annoyingly, and it's sort of kind of a pattern, really. Playing the kind of character parts as opposed to the lead. But we had this brilliant art teacher called Mary Metcalf, and she'd stomp around the place on sort of, stiletto heels. And one of those teachers, I don't know if you ever had any of these teachers, that would get a dress pattern and make about, 6 dresses from the same pattern, with their sewing machine at home, and all in different fabrics. And hers was very sort of fitted on the waist with a sort of swirling skirt and high collar. It was very sort of, and she had this dashing auburn hair. And she would direct the school plays, and she would do this thing of directing like 2 casts so that more people got a turn.
Oh, wow, okay.
But like in, we did Caesar and Cleopatra one year with the boys' grammar school, and I was Charmian the maid. I mean, I'd never have got Cleopatra. So I was Charmian, Cleopatra's maid. And then we did The Snow Queen, a musical of The Snow Queen with music by Grieg, which was great, actually. Yeah. So, of course, I wasn't the Snow Queen. I was the front legs of the reindeer.
So no sense here of the future thesp then, really?
No, but I did love it, and I did go in for drama festivals, and Mary Metcalf really did encourage me, and it was...
Didn't encourage you that much? She made you the front legs of the reindeer. Was it a speaking role?
It was. And
okay.
James,
quite a lot of lines.
I had a song.
Oh, well, I'll take it back then. Good old Mary Metcalf.
I had a number.
Yeah.
And so and she encouraged me to do all these drama festivals, and I think we did do a sort of reading of The Merchant of Venice in which I got Portia. So yeah, but she was very encouraging, and she it was that said to me, because I really, really wanted to go to drama school.
Okay, already. So this is what, 15, 16?
Yeah. I always wanted to go to drama school, and I didn't do. I mean, I'd been very good at languages, and I didn't want to do languages for A level because all I wanted to do was go to drama school.
Well, that's come out of nowhere, really. Just that kind of.
Well, not really. I always.
No, I mean in terms of this conversation, not in terms of the life that you
live. Telling me off.
No, I mean, apart from being good at. Impersonating your teachers and loving the storytelling and the books and watching stuff with your dad. I mean, drama school's a big deal, I'd have thought, for someone at that school at that time. It would be a little bit like, what? Where?
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, and, careers advice was absolutely shit. It was kind of work in a bank or be a head or be a teacher.
Back to Glenda again then.
A
bit more of that kind of, well, that's what I'm going to do, independently of what everyone else is doing or what everyone is telling me I should do.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. And anyway, you couldn't get a grant to go to drama school.
Because it wasn't a degree. And I think some authorities, you could sort of audition for the authority to... you could. Yeah.
And anyway, I don't think we could do that, or certainly it wasn't ever... I didn't know about it, and
it was LEA specific. I think.
Yeah,
I've interviewed a lot of actors, and so some local authorities you'd just wave you through, and other ones you'd have to dance for them, and other ones it just wasn't an option at all.
Yeah.
So that got dashed by the policy, by the government.
Yeah,
it's not an option. Parents aren't going to find the money to send you.
Well, but I mean, it's so much worse now, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Anywho, Mary Metcalfe said, "What you should do is go and do drama." At Homerton College, Cambridge, where I went. Ooh. And she said, marvellous, punting on the backs and, all that. And she kind of mentioned the Footlights and all this. And so I went to Cambridge thinking, knowing that there was a big sort of theatrical scene there and a bit about the Footlights. And, my dad sort of knew, I think, kind of vaguely about that. And...
so the first the sort of Jonathan Miller era, wouldn't he? If he was a big,
but it was kind of like. I mean, he liked and he liked Monty Python and and the Beyond the Fringe.
So there was no. Don't get too big for your boots, Janet, here then, from home or from school.
Well, I think that, it's extraordinary because, with my kids, I'd be kind of, we'd be having chats about, what GCSEs they were going to do, whether they wanted to go on to college, whether they wanted to go to music or what way do you want to go? And then, can you help me with this essay? Yes. What have you tried this? The input that my generation of parents, our generation of parents have with their kids is so much more. Like with my parents, they had no clue.
Just leave the school to it.
Leave the school to it. And, I think they definitely were much happier that I was going to teacher training college because, okay, you want to be an actress, but, you'll have something to fall back on.
Yes, of course.
And
something to fall back on.
Yeah. And so I think that kept all of us happy to some degree.
So quite a neat trajectory then, really, through school and grammar school, and then off to Cambridge to do what you kind of wanted to do, or that was the best possible compromise of all the things that were vying for your potentials and enthusiasms. But you genuinely wanted to be an actress. You that was it. That was what you wanted to be.
Oh God, I had no thought of being a comedian, and certainly not an impressionist. That never crossed my radar at all. And it's funny because lots of the male impressionists I talked to, that's what they wanted. I mean, Rory Bremner from a very young age, loved doing all the voices and thought, I can make people laugh. I could make a go at this. And Lewis MacLeod, he, used to do all the voices and the sound effects and John, I think as well. I mean, John got into it, as you know, sort of through DJing really. And, but I think they had this thing that they thought they could make a go of, whereas I that never crossed my mind for a minute. And also, I love literature, I love poetry, I love the language. And so to sort of, be immersed in that, was something that I really, really hankered after, because this teacher training college I was at, it was kind of part of Cambridge University. So you did the Cambridge Shakespeare tripos. So, you got taught by all these brilliant people like Christopher Ricks and everything. It was such a kind of fantastic opportunity from that point of view.
And you threw yourself into it?
Well, I did, not quite hard enough because I was too busy doing all the plays and the Footlights.
Okay.
But not.
So I meant that as well. I mean, you threw yourself into the life.
Yeah. I didn't throw myself into the, I got a tutu. I got a sort of, theatrical tutu. So yeah, I didn't throw myself into the academic side of things quite as, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and
it bolstered your belief that this was the life. Yeah, it's an actor's life for me. What was your Footlights audition like? Can you remember? Because I've heard conflicting stories, not about yours, but people who found it really harrowing. And of course, I always get the universities a little bit mixed up. But I think Miriam Margolyes has very little nice to say about the people she was in the Footlights.
Yeah, well, not surprisingly, I think. I mean, it was still very male-dominated when I did it. I can't remember doing an audition because I think I'd done lots of plays with. I mean, Griff Rhys-Jones had directed Bartholomew Fair for the Ben Jonson play, and I'd done Ursula the Pig Woman in that, which was great fun, and I'd done plays with Jimmy Mulville, who now runs Hat Trick, and the first play I did was directed by Nick Heitner.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, it's absolutely insane. So I think the people that were kind of involved in Footlights knew, had sort of seen me around kind of thing. And I can't remember auditioning for Footlights, to be honest.
But you slotted straight in.
But I slotted straight in. I mean, I do remember Emma Thompson coming to do her audition for Footlights, and being in the Footlights club room, and I'd been sort of in it sort of for a year, and then Emma arrived on the scene that year later, and she walked into the Footlights club room, and I thought, oh my God, I'm fucked here, because I mean, she was like so self-possessed.
Was she?
Because I was like a grammar school girl feeling a bit fish out of watery, and all the time at Cambridge I was trying to sort of keep up,
sure,
to some degree. Whereas Emma was so kind of urban and kind of London, North London kind of high, she sort of swanned in, and I think
were you directing it that year? Is that 80?
No, not that year,
right.
No. But I mean, we became good friends and everything. But I always remember she just had a kind of gloss on her,
And you never know. And below the water, her little flippers might have been going like that, but I doubt it, really. I think she was probably very in control.
You're very much born to it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now, I mean, Footlights is comedy. It's not straight acting. I know you were doing the straight acting as well, but here you discover your funny bones. Is this where you really discover funny bones?
Well, I think I'd been doing like funny character parts in the plays. I mean, I was never playing the sort of, gaunt heroin addict characters.
Was there a frustration there? Would you like to have done?
Yeah, I would like to have done a bit more.
Given your love of the literature, it would have been natural to want to try to play the.
No, I really did.
The heavier part.
Yeah, no, I definitely did want to do that. Although something like Johnson, the sort of the posh characters, the straight characters, are much less interesting.
Yes.
Yes. Obviously, in Shakespeare, it's different because there's all the psychological complexity. But in Johnson, they're sort of like engines, aren't they? They're kind of, they're all symbolising something. But yeah, it would have been, and also the modern stuff. Anyway, I had to wait, a good many years for all that.
But you didn't have to wait to make a splash here. You became, I think, the first woman president of Footlights, the review of the Footlights review.
Yeah.
That speaks of a certain ambition.
I think it speaks. Yes, it speaks of. I think it speaks of daring. I mean, I was so terrified about the whole thing. And yet I kind of made myself do it. I dared do it. And I'd done things like I directed the Gilbert and Sullivan Society in HMS Pinafore and choreographed it all myself. What was I doing? I mean,
Not studying is the short answer.
Yeah. But yeah, I was the first president. And it was kind of a moment because the guy who had been president the year before me was this guy called Martin Bergman, who was like a sort of 45-year-old entrepreneur, you know, even then in his vibe. And he's now married to and sort of manager and writer of this American comedian called Rita Rudner.
Right,
and they live in Orange County. And, you know, he's sort of doing what he was always meant to do. But he always had an eye for, you know, I mean, me and Emma and Sandy Toksvig did this review in Cambridge, which was the first all-female review called Woman's Hour. And you know, it was 1980. It was 1980. So I mean, you know, so feminism was very much, you know, around, and you know, we all sort of had, you know, hairy legs and dungarees and everything, and you know, a lot of that going on. And I think he sort of thought this would be very good publicity to you know, to get the first woman president. And once I had become president, I thought, I don't know why they didn't get a woman to do this before, because actually it's a load of sort of admin and slog.
Schlep. Yes.
It's a real schlep.
So what year did you do the sellotapes? Was that 81? And were you president then?
No.
That was before?
I'd left Cambridge.
Oh, okay. So you came back to direct.
So that was a sort of tradition that you know, a previous alumna or nus usually would be invited back to direct the review. And
so that's another big deal.
So that was another huge big deal and huge pressure. So Hugh Laurie, you know, I'd gone to London to seek my fortune and was working in a designer knitwear shop in Kensington, and got this letter from Hugh, which I've still got actually, saying, you know, Footlights headed note paper saying, you know, we'd like you to direct the review, and Stephen and Hugh had already emerged as a very strong, you know, partnership, writing partnership and performing partnership, and they were quite intimidating actually.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And then there was, you know, Glossy Emma, and then there was gorgeous maverick Tony Slattery, and so it was a big deal, and there was three of them. There was the first president of Footlights, the first woman to direct the Footlights review, and then, because that review had such fabulous people in it and such a lot of good material and was such a success and won the first Perrier Award and all that, then I was asked to be a BBC radio comedy producer, which was another very well-trodden path for people from Footlights, but not for women. And so I was in, you know, I had like 3 years or whatever of this pressure of thinking, God, if I fuck this up, they're never going to ask another woman ever again.
Fucking up for all of us.
Yeah. So it was a lot of pressure, and
of course.
And after being a producer for about 18 months, I think I thought, you know what I've really always wanted to do is perform. So I left.
Well, that's quite daring as well, right?
Yeah.
Because you're on a nice path now.
Yeah.
You know, John Lloyd was here not long ago.
Yeah.
Producers can be stars in a sense, although they're never going to be the kind. They're never. I mean, it's an itch you had to scratch. You wanted to be in front of an audience.
Yeah. And
you were
young. I think it's my strength as well.
Yes,
I don't think I was I'm quite a good director, but I'm not a very good producer, because I'm just not. I haven't got very good attention to detail where all that admin's concerned.
So you're back then to trying to make your fortune in London. You come out of the BBC. Did you have anything on the horizon when you did? Did you have a job in place? Did you have a role?
No, but I got an agent because this, you know, quite powerful agent, Vivian Claw, had seen me doing warm-ups, because when you're the producer, you do the warm-up in the radio theatre, and she'd seen me do that, and I said to her, you know, I wonder, you know, I'm going to leave and I need an agent, you know, have you got any advice as to sort of the sort of place I should go? She said, well, I'll take you on. And it was like, wow.
Yeah.
So that was a good agency, and it had like a voiceover department and all that, and because I was versatile, that was a really, really good thing. So I did quite a few commercials in my first year, and then
which were very lucrative then.
Yeah,
much more than they are now.
Yeah, they were. So I got, you know, like 3 or 4 of those, and that was good. And then my then husband and we did a review together called Har Bloody Har with another guy called Nick Wilton. Did it in Edinburgh, sold out in Edinburgh, and Nick was already in Carrot's Lib. on the telly, and so Jasper came to see the show, and so I got put in the next series of Carrots Lib, and that's where I started doing impressions, because I did.
So did everyone at Cambridge know you could do impressions, or was it just something you'd kept on the relatively down low?
Yeah, they did.
Right.
They did.
But it wasn't a big part of your contribution.
No, I mean, sometimes I would do people, and, you know, I can remember Hugh going, Christ, that's extraordinary, you know, but I never even thought to...
It's more of a party trick.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
But so Jasper Carrot spots that this is rather more than... And
I think in that show, in that Ha Bloody Ha, I did Claire Rayner,
right,
Victoria Wood, and one other I can't remember. But anyway, so because Carrots Lib was topical, there was a bit of all that involved. And then following on from that, got asked to do Spitting Image.
So you're on the telly.
On the telly.
What did Mum and Dad make of that?
Oh, they loved it.
Did
they absolutely loved it. Yeah, they were absolutely thrilled. Yeah, they were, and it was just so exciting because it was live every Saturday night from the Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Yes,
which was then the Television Theatre, and so it was a real buzz. It was really great fun. One
of the first jokes I ever really got, like a grown-up joke, was on Carrots Lib, and I don't know who was playing someone who's clearly based on Andrew Windsor, as we now call him.
Yes.
on the balcony with his bodyguard.
Yeah.
And he said to the bodyguard, "Did you go to university, Perkins?" And he said, "No, sir, I got the same A-level grades as you." And I got it. I got that joke, even though, you know, I was probably staying up late watching it with my dad. I think it was Carrots Lib. It was definitely one of his shows. And do you have a sense now of this is where I'm meant to be? This is what I'm supposed to be doing?
I did to some degree. I did. I mean, I loved doing the telly show and the whole business of, you know, going into makeup and getting made into all these different people, and it was very, very exciting. But I think then that trajectory, going from there to Spitting Image, and then I started doing this show on Capital called Brunch, where we did, you know, we were getting at, you know, we were doing topical stuff every week.
Who else was doing that with you? Who was that in this building?
No, it was at the Rockin' Tower.
Oh yeah, okay.
On the Euston Road. Roger Scott was the DJ, and it was a guy called Jeremy Pascal, who's passed away. Well, actually, Roger Scott passed away as well. Angus Deaton, Steve Brown, to whom I was married and did all the music, wrote these things called a brunchogram, where he'd make a song out of something that had happened to a listener that week. And Paul Bennet, who was also a DJ but did funny voices.
So you're busy now?
Yeah, very busy. But that was when, and I was asked to do quite a few panel games and stuff. And so you go on the panel games and people want you to do the voices. And I started feeling like a performing dog, you know. I started feeling like, you know, well, I do like doing the voices, but I really want to, you know, I was...
Spitting Image must have consolidated.
Oh, that was such fun.
But also it is just the voices, isn't it?
It is just the voices. It was great because it was, you know, it was the show everybody was talking about, and it was great fun to do. We used to go up to Birmingham on the train, Harry Enfield doing his, you know, Mr. Trumley Warner with John, and N. Rytell, this really, really funny guy who used to bring his sooty puppet. And we just used to laugh and laugh. But anyway, So I was kind of saying to my agent, you know, I really want to do some proper acting, but it's quite hard. I think particularly for impressionists. I think for comedians, people sort of, you know, are much more sort of open to comedians being good actors than they are to impressionists for some reason. Because actually, when you're doing impressions, you're kind of doing uber acting. You know, it's like several levels of acting.
Alistair talked about this a bit as well.
Yes, we're both on our soapbox a bit.
Well, it's not a soapbox.
Yeah.
There is a sort of injustice to it, but it goes alongside. So many people in the profession would just be grateful for the bloody work, wouldn't they? So there's tension from two directions. Yeah, yeah. But you want to do the stuff that fulfills you the most. Yeah. And you weren't. I mean, by this point, you would even go on the panel shows and be expected to do the voices rather than just to be funny in your own right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And chat shows, if you went on a chat show, I used to sort of think, you don't get Judi Dench on a chat show and say, do a bit of Cleopatra. Well, actually, they do now. Graham Norton got to do that fabulous sonnet, which was magical.
Yes.
But not as a rule. You can just have a nice chat about yourself.
Which makes a lot more sense then, that you then by 94 you joined the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Yeah, that was a brilliant kind of chance thing, really. I was working with this friend of mine, Karen Lewis, doing voiceovers and stuff, and her husband was Mike Attenborough, who was a director at the RSC, and they were looking for somebody to play this one particular part that he hadn't been able to cast from within the company to his satisfaction, and it was a new David Edgar play, and it was to play Bulgarian art curator, and she had to be quite sort of, she had to be quite sort of sparky, but it was quite serious play about Eastern Europe, sort of, the wall had come down, and Eastern Europe wanting to feel kind of vindicated and sort of wanted to sort of celebrate its culture and to be one of the big boys, and was feeling very overwhelmed by American culture and all that kind of thing. And it was such an interesting play. I mean, it was so dense, and everybody speaking all these different languages. And it was the lead role in this new David Edgar play, and the play was all about sort of, this sort of cultural vindication of these little countries. And I felt like it was a parable. I felt like, and I'm getting culturally vindicated as well, So, yeah, it was just an absolute joy, yeah. And
on the big stage in Stratford?
Yeah. No, actually, it was on the smaller stage in Stratford.
But metaphorically, the big stage in Stratford.
Yes.
And it lived up to all your expectations?
Oh, God, yeah.
But also reminded you of the kind of...
Yes, why I joined.
The other path.
Yeah.
The other professional path.
Yeah. I mean, I had done bits. I did get to do Viola in Twelfth Night at Birmingham Rep, which was...
Around the same time?
No, that was 89, I think.
Okay. And now you're on that kind of... that nice track of doing both, taking parts in things. More TV, I think, than stage. Subsequently, Radio 4, comedy festivals, do the Grimleys.
Oh, the Grimleys was brilliant. Yeah.
Pop up in an episode of One Foot in the Grave. Are you happy during this period? Are you fulfilled?
Ish, yeah. I mean, I was. I think. I think it was still hard. It was still hard getting as much of that as I wanted, kind of thing, and still is. Yeah. But then again, I think now, I mean, I'm 67 years old. I kind of think, as you say, you actually, I mean, we are having such a year, at the moment, and Dead Ringers has been such. I mean, having done it for 25 years, and so that started in 2000, and when Bill asked me to do it, Kate Robbins, who'd done Spitting Image, she did the first two, and then she went off. She got a part in a telly series and wanted to go off and film that, and so Bill asked me to do it, and Kate never came back. And it was like I could tell that it was going to be great.
Could you? Why? How?
Well, because Bill is such a good was sadly lost.
Of course.
But he was such a great script guy, and he was quite daring. He was quite maverick in that way.
Because it was like nothing that had come before, was it? Even though elements of it had happened before.
He wanted
this was
to
magic.
he wanted it to be Spitting Image on the radio. Yes. So he wanted it.
So it's scabrous and scurrilous.
I mean, it did start off. It started off much more kind of like a sort of quite Radio 4-y, It was all, BBC, Radio 4, I'm Charlotte Green, It was all kind of, all that stuff. But then it, and then we quite quickly got onto telly. But I knew it was going to be good, and I was the only woman in it, and sort of, again, I felt this sort of pressure as a feminist. We've got to get, some better female characters on this. It was like Posh Spice, a secretary, Thatcher,
right.
whatever.
Sure.
And so I was always trying to get Bill to, to put in more of the sort of female politicians, even though they weren't cutting through that much. It was people like, Tessa Jowell or, Hazel Blears or Harriet Harman and, but there were also people like Claire Short, Claire Short, who speaks like this because Tony Blair has wired her jaw together. And so she doesn't make any more indiscreet remarks about Iraq. And Anne Widdecombe, who was always a good character. Yeah. And then... And so, and I realised that, there weren't that many politicians that he was going to put. So I sort of thought I've got to make characters out of the news readers as opposed to the newsmakers. So I worked on all these characters, for the news readers. And then I kind of thought, what are these programmes that, none of the guys were writing material about, things like changing rooms or location. And I said, half the population at least is watching these programmes.
Yeah, it's a real cultural marking point.
Yeah. And so I got all those characters in, so I gradually started getting characters in that they were doing all the sports commentators. I mean, it was extraordinary, really, the way it was, sort of polarised like that. I mean, because this is like, it's only 25 years ago. It doesn't seem like that long.
It also, I mean, in some ways, it was bigger than Spitting Image in the way that it parodied itself. It parodied Radio 4 as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that was... magical, really, because then the listener's in on the joke somehow in a way that is the best moments in comedy when you think you're party to something that other people aren't party to.
And that is what's so lovely about doing the tour, this year, is that these audiences, I mean, we've been playing like, 2,000-3,000 seat theatres. It's absolutely incredible. And everybody just... loving it, they just love the show that they've been with.
I mean, is it all original material, or do you bring back some sort of golden oldies, some classics?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of. I mean, we've got one of those sort of things on a screen behind us with the years on it, and so so there's like the Blair and Bush sketch, and there's all the Brexit stuff, of course, there's lots of that. And in fact, it's mostly, and we do it like a radio recording, so we've got our scripts and the mics and everything, but then we do bits where we sort of talk about our favourites and we talk about how we do them. And, I'll talk about, first seeing, Theresa May on the steps of Downing Street and realising that she's doing her own descant, all the time. So we talk about each other's favourites, and so there's sort of added value in that sense. And then there's there's a Trump monologue and a Starmer monologue, and they get topical bits added in.
Yes.
So you can't really add topical bits into the sketches, because if you've got Blair and Bush,
sure,
you can't talk about stuff that's going on now, because you're talking about things that were going on then. You're talking about Iraq and Tyrac.
Got it. But with the more up to date one, they just keep giving you material, don't they? The world, and me. I mean, it's
oh my God, we're never
fertile territory. But I'd tell you what, I'd accept a rest.
Yes,
I'd accept a hiatus.
Yes, at least we can laugh at it.
True.
Oh God.
And this propels you into a different space as well over the course of that 25 years. It gives you the freedom to do your solo show, Who Do I Think I Am, to kind of do other stuff that perhaps you might not have done were it not for the kind of rocket fuel that Dead Ringers is.
I mean, certainly when it went on the telly, one reached a kind of higher level of visibility, and which had all sorts of nice kind of effects.
And when you get together, and I mean, because it's not as if it's not like a reunion tour, is it? It's because you've been doing the radio throughout, so there's none of that. It's not like Monty Python appearing on stage. It's just a different dimension, presumably, to do it on.
Well, it's sort of like it's almost like why haven't we done this before? I mean, we've done sort of like we did a week at the Barbican a few years ago. We've done sort of the odd little few gigs. But I mean, this is extraordinary. I think there is a huge appetite for live comedy, and maybe particularly for topical comedy. And I mean, I know the Fast Show are doing a tour, and they're doing all these huge venues as well. You know, and I think
there's also the fact that the only people who can afford to go to shows are the demographic for you and the Fast Show. That's the point Arabella made when she was here. The kids haven't got any money.
Mind you, it's not, you know, when you think of what people are paying to go and see, you know, Oasis.
Of course.
And obviously we're nowhere near Oasis, but, you know, it's 30 quid or something for a ticket, you know.
No, I know. It just struck me that there's crossover, isn't there? And judging from your voice and the animation on your face, you are enjoying this as much as you did when it started. I mean, Dead Ringers is the gift that keeps on giving.
It absolutely is, and I feel so privileged, you know, because the writers. I mean, I don't know if you listen to Dead Ringers, but I mean, I mean, I don't know how they keep coming up with stuff.
No, it is insane.
It doesn't seem to matter how sensitive or, you know, self-referential the material is about the BBC, which it often is. You know, I mean, you know, when the whole Greg Wallace thing blew up, you know, how are we going to do this? And there's this brilliant sketch. It's in the tour show where it's Mark Rylance and Mark doing Wolf Hall. You know, I'm sorry to tell you, my liege, that, you know, I am afraid, you know, you are going to be let go, you know, from the show, you know, for inappropriate behaviour towards women. What? Can I not wave little Henry around? Why is, you know, what are you saying? And
there's a wince, isn't there? There's a kind of which is again the best moment for a listener.
Yeah, exactly. You do hear that kind of sometimes. Where are they going with this? And I feel so grateful to them and grateful to Bill for, you know, for me being his second choice, but you know, for the privilege, and we all, you know, the lovely thing is that all four of us in the tour show and all five of us in the radio show, we're all, you know, absolutely totally aware of how great this is and how we need to, you know, enjoy every moment of this.
And so when did that sense of Jan Ravens, am more than just the person who does the voices, when did the sort of lingering sense of dissatisfaction about that disappear, if it did?
I think Stratford, although I had a kind of you know, I had a difficult time, I think, after that, when, because Dead Ringers wasn't on for a while.
No, of course.
It had a sort of hiatus in the middle of the 2000 to 2010. So it had a hiatus for a few years, and I was sort of not quite sure where I was, and I was because it wasn't till 2017 that I did a one-woman show in 2008 called A Funny Look at Impressions, where I basically sort of justified the whole notion of impressions and talked about it, you know, the psychological, the sort of social, the need
Sounds
for
like
it.
Therapy.
Yeah, it kind of was like therapy, and it was sort of a bit like, you know, a teacher telling you about it. You know, there was something of the lecture in it. And then in 2017, I did Difficult Woman, which was, you know, around the time of Theresa May and everything, and that was.
And you nailed them all, didn't you?
That was a
Truss, Merkel, Kirsty Walk.
Kirsty Warwick, yes, you scumbag, you maggot, you cheap lousy faggot. More than that story later,
And so it did settle at that sort of dichotomy, really, at the heart of your career.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, you know, now, and maybe that, you know, maybe it's because I'm in the middle of a sort of, you know, a crest kind of thing, that, you know, because I was sort of thinking maybe it's time to kind of, you know, do a Claudia and Tess and say, we've decided this is the right time to go. But now I kind of think, well, why would you? Yes, exactly. You know, why would you? I mean, and, you know, it doesn't matter that you're, I mean, you can still do live, nobody seems to care on stage that, you know, I'm a woman of a certain age. Everybody's still loving it, you know, and if I think of other women of my age, you know, Dawn and Jennifer and, you know, all that. You're
still a pioneer, you see. That's the thing.
Yeah. And also, you know, I do a monologue in the show of Nigella Lawson, you know, making cooking sound sexy, and today I'm going to make something else sound sexy, filling in my self-assessment tax return, and it's very, it's full of double entendres, and Nigella doing, and I sort of think, oh God, am I too old to be doing this? I said, well Nigella's the same age.
Exactly that. Back on the road in January, I think. Is that right? You've got some
back on the road in January, yeah, and.
Tickets available?
Tickets available, yes. I know that we're doing the London Palladium on February the 2nd, exciting. Which is very exciting. Yes. And we just did the Royal Variety Show last week. Yes. So playing the Royal Albert Hall, oh my goodness. The Royal Variety Show is exactly what it sounds like. I mean, you're sitting in this dressing room that, you're sharing with Tom from McFly and Mick Miller, the ageing Liverpool comedian, and, a bunch of jugglers from, Britain's Got Talent or something. And going past
the spoons.
And going past your door is kind of the cast of Les Miserables, Paddington, and, the Grenadier Guards in busbies and things. It's just extraordinary. So many people buzzing about.
So what we've done there in the space of the interview, we brought it back to your paternal grandfather.
Yes.
With the Grenadier Guards.
Look at that. The granddaughter of a Grenadier Guard.
Do you have, final question,
yeah.
Is there an unticked box? Is there anything else that you would like to do that you haven't done?
Well, I think it's just back to, I would love to do more of... proper acting, more whole body acting, more proper acting.
Whole body acting.
And
is that a you thing, or is that do other people use that?
I think other people use it as well. I can't remember who's. Anyway, whole body acting, and I would like to write another one-woman show. I'm sort of thinking I should do a one-woman show, but I need that thing. I need like the sort of the difficult woman, which hit me the peg. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it happens.
Thank you.
And as I said, the 25th anniversary tour of Dead Ringers continues.
Yeah.
Back on the road
at
in January.
A venue near you.
Jan Ravens, thank you.
Thank you very much.